In 2017, Morgan Stanley, the bank born from the House of Morgan, became worth more than Goldman Sachs for the first time in over a decade. A dynasty that once bailed out the entire United States government had spent 30 years being humiliated by a firm started in a basement next to a coal chute by a German immigrant peddler. And then it clawed the crown back. This is the story of how a peddler's grandson destroyed a banking dynasty and how the dynasty's heir found a way to win anyway. Not with better connections, not with better pedigree, but with something the Morgan Empire never saw coming: hunger. Here's the part of the story most people forget. Morgan Stanley didn't just lose because Goldman was good. Morgan Stanley lost because it believed with absolute certainty that it could not lose. That was the fatal flaw. And by the time they saw the blade coming, it was already in their throat. Before there was Wall Street, there was JP Morgan. In 1895, the US Treasury was empty. Gold reserves had collapsed. The government was about to default. JP Morgan walked into the White House. He didn't ask permission. He told them what would happen next. He organized a syndicate, supplied the gold, saved the federal government with his own money. In 1907, it happened again. A full-blown financial panic. Banks were falling. Morgan locked the doors of his library on 36th Street and didn't let anyone leave until they'd signed a bailout. He was not elected. He was not appointed. He was just the most powerful man in America. The House of Morgan financed railroads. It financed steel. It financed half the US war effort. And when Congress finally broke it apart in 1935, they didn't just spin off a new firm. They created a weapon: Morgan Stanley. The Glass-Steagall Act of 1933 drew a line: commercial banking on one side, investment banking on the other. JP Morgan and company had to choose. They chose commercial banking, but they didn't surrender investment banking. They just gave it a new name: September 16, 1935. Henry Sturgis Morgan, J.P. Morgan's grandson, and Harold Stanley opened a new firm. 13 employees, 1 room, and the most prestigious client list in human history. Morgan Stanley didn't have to earn the blue chip accounts. They inherited them. The partners were white, Protestant, Ivy League, the white shoe firm. The club you were born into, tradition, pedigree, prestige, and zero reason to believe anyone could touch them. 3 blocks away, a different kind of firm had been quietly surviving for 66 years. It didn't look like a threat. It looked like a mistake that hadn't died yet. A 48-year-old German-Jewish immigrant named Marcus Goldman hangs a sign in Lower Manhattan, 1 room, basement level, next to a coal chute. Before this, Goldman was a street peddler. He sold goods from a cart. He had no banking background, no family money, no connections. He was also Jewish in an industry run by Protestant elites who didn't want him in the room. So Goldman found a different room. He started buying promissory notes, short-term IOUs from small businesses in the jewelry district. He'd carry them in his top hat, walk to the commercial banks, and sell them at a tiny markup. It wasn't investment banking. It was barely banking at all. But here's what the House of Morgan didn't understand. When you're born outside the gate, you learn to climb. When no one gives you the client list, you build your own. When the system is designed to exclude you, you learn to outwork it. Goldman Sachs was never supposed to survive. That just made it dangerous. The market collapses, and Goldman Sachs collapses with it. The Goldman Sachs Trading Corporation, the firm's great innovation, lost over 90% of its value. Not 80, not 85, 90. the name Goldman Sachs became a punchline, a synonym for reckless greed. The public hated them, clients abandoned them, partners walked away. The firm should have died right there. Instead, the Sachs family handed the keys to a man who had started at Goldman as a janitor's assistant. Sidney Weinberg, high school dropout, mopped floors, ran errands. He had no pedigree, no Ivy League degree, no family name. And he spent the next 4 decades rebuilding the firm, one relationship at a time, one client at a time, no shortcuts, no grand strategy, just the grinding, unglamorous work of proving yourself every single day. Morgan Stanley had inherited its reputation. Goldman Sachs was about to earn one from the floor up. For 30 years, Sidney Weinberg did something Morgan Stanley never had to do. He showed up, he joined corporate boards, not because Goldman was prestigious, but because he personally made himself indispensable. General Electric, Ford, Sears, the companies that defined American capitalism. Weinberg didn't just advise them, he embedded himself. He became known as Mr. Wall Street, not because he was born into it, but because he outworked everyone who was. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley rested. The blue-chip clients stayed loyal. The Ivy League pipeline kept delivering. The WASP network kept humming. Why change? The system was built for them. That was the moment the trap was set. Morgan Stanley was winning. And winning, for a firm built on birthright, is the most dangerous thing you can do. But the moment the peddler's firm truly passed the House of Morgan, the exact year the outsider took the crown, was still a decade away. And when it came, it wouldn't be close. Here's the part of the story that explains everything. 2 firms, same industry, opposite operating systems, Morgan Stanley, White Shoe, WASP, the firm you were born into. Partners hired from the same 3 Ivy League schools. Clients inherited from the House of Morgan. The culture said one thing: you belong here because of who you are. Goldman Sachs, Jewish, outsider, the firm you fought your way into. Partners promoted on merit, not name. Clients earned, not inherited. The culture said something else. You belong here because of what you can do. Gus Levy, the Goldman partner who pioneered block trading in the 1960s, put it in 3 words: long-term greedy, not short-term, not reckless. Greedy measured in decades, not quarters. Morgan Stanley played to not lose. Goldman Sachs played to win and was willing to wait. It sounds small. It changed everything. The 1970s, block trading. Goldman's didn't just execute trades, they used their own capital to buy entire blocks of stock. Risk that Morgan Stanley found unseemly, the 1980s, mergers and acquisitions. Goldman built the most aggressive M&A desk on Wall Street. They didn't wait for the phone to ring. They called first. The Microsoft IPO. Goldman was lead underwriter, and that deal put them on the map with every tech company in America. Morgan Stanley was still doing things the old way. Relationships, reputation, the quiet phone call between gentlemen. Goldman was doing things the new way. Speed, aggression. The deal before the other guy even knew it was happening. By the 1990s, the numbers didn't lie. The peddler's firm had overtaken the House of Morgan's child. The outsider was number 1. And the blue blood firm, it was looking up. If you're still watching this far in, you already feel where this is going. So subscribe to Rivalry Files now, because the reversal in the last 5 minutes is the part almost no one sees coming. By 1999, Goldman Sachs went public. The partnership that Marcus Goldman started in a basement was now worth billions. And Morgan Stanley, still prestigious, still elite, still White Shoe, but the crown was gone. Goldman didn't just beat Morgan Stanley, it rewired what Wall Street valued. Not who your grandfather was, what you could do. The WASP aristocracy had been replaced by a meritocracy of hunger. Marcus Goldman's great-grandchildren didn't inherit a banking dynasty, they built one from nothing. And the House of Morgan, the empire that once bailed out the United States government, had been reduced to watching. That was it. That was the kill shot. Not a merger, not a hostile takeover, not a scandal, just a better firm built by hungrier people who had been told their entire history that they didn't belong. September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapses. The entire financial system freezes. Goldman Sachs is in freefall. Morgan Stanley is in freefall. Both firms face the same death that took Lehman, that took Bear Stearns. Within days, both convert to bank holding companies. They access Federal Reserve emergency funding. They survive. But here's what nobody saw coming. The crisis didn't just threaten them, it equalized them. Goldman's trading dominance became a liability. Morgan Stanley's conservatism became an asset. And in the wreckage, one man made a decision that would flip the entire rivalry. James Gorman, Morgan Stanley's new CEO. He looked at the battlefield and realized something. Trying to beat Goldman at Goldman's game was suicide. So he changed the game. James Gorman pivoted Morgan Stanley into wealth management, not trading, not high-risk M&A, steady, boring, predictable fee income from managing rich people's money. Goldman Sachs doubled down on what it knew. Trading, deals, the High-Wire Act. For years, it looked like Goldman had won again. Then 2017, Morgan Stanley surpassed Goldman Sachs in market value for the first time since the financial crisis. The market wasn't rewarding the killer instinct anymore. It was rewarding stability. The white shoe firm had found a way to win by not fighting Goldman's war at all. And Goldman? Goldman was still fighting the last war, still the scrappy outsider, still proving itself. But the outsider had become what it once despised, the establishment. The irony was absolute. The war between Goldman Sachs and the Morgan Empire is still being fought. Not with hostile takeovers, not with IPO league tables, with market caps, with strategy pivots, with the quiet decisions made in boardrooms at 6 a.m. But the lesson isn't that Goldman won or Morgan Stanley won. The lesson is this: prestige is not inherited. Morgan Stanley was born with every advantage, and it nearly destroyed them. Because when you believe the crown is yours by right, you stop fighting for it. Goldman Sachs was born with nothing, and that became its weapon. Because when no door opens for you, you learn to break them down. But the lesson has a second edge. The moment you start believing you're the empire, someone hungrier is already climbing the wall. Morgan Stanley forgot that in the 1990s. Goldman Sachs is learning it right now. The only real question is, which one are you going to be?